Right, good morning, welcome back. Okay, today, braided brake hoses and clutch hose upgrade. Going to put some slightly longer ones on to reach the end of these bars. Now, I have done this before on several occasions, but this information never gets old. It's always worth updating because most people who find a video or find a channel, they only watch forwards. So we're going to do it again today, but this time to make it a little bit more useful and interesting, I'm going to include a little trick on how to stop those tiny micro bubbles creeping in when you're trying to bleed it through. Ever so simple, straightforward, and it'll help stop the bleed nipples seizing up as well. So let's get stuck in. Right, okay, everything I wanted turned up in the pack, a new clutch hose and two new brake hoses. I've gone with equal length, I like that, double banjo at the top, equal length to the bottom, and they're 100mm longer. Now, with that, you get everything else that's standard. The 100mm longer is my custom specification, but I went to Remoto's headquarters once and I watched them making these. They have a massive database of information and they plug into that and then they make everything exactly as the factory does. The angle of the banjo unions, any bends or kinks in them, they do all of it custom spec. So it's exactly as the factory intended, except your extra little bit of length, which I've got in these. The other thing is they also coat them in this plastic to protect your bike from any damage, because braided hoses, if they're unprotected, they'll rub against your paintwork and they will cut through it. It's nasty. So they're all ready to go, ready to fit. You get washers and banjo bolts as well. Stainless I've chosen, you get a choice. And again, you get a choice of colors. It's all there and I'll put a link in the description. So let's get the old ones pulled off, get the master cylinders clamped on the bars, bolt them up and plumb them up. Right, bleed valves. When you're bleeding a system in reverse like this, and I'm forcing fluid into the bleed valve, quite often it can all squirt out around the thread because it's not a very tight fit. When you crack these at 1/8 of a turn so that you can force the fluid in there, then obviously that's enough for them to wiggle around. Feel it. Next time you're there doing this, just get hold of it, give it a wiggle, you'll see it moves about. If that moves about, that means there's a gap, and if there's the gap, as you're forcing that fluid in, which I'm going to do, it all squirts out the side and makes a right old mess. There's a simple way around it, and it also helps you when you cut those last little strings of bubbles when you're bleeding in the other direction. When you're doing normal brake bleeding, you get those constant bubbles that won't go away. You're drawing the air down the side with a thread. This is a problem. Bleed valves really aren't that well sealed. The minute you open them, they draw air in, or if you're forcing the fluid in, they'll squirt it out the sides. So a great way to do it, and I'm going to do it with a clutch here, is this stuff, the old PTFE plumber's tape. Wrap a couple of turns of that around the thread and that seals it. It seals it for me now as I force the fluid into it. It won't Vesuvius everywhere. And at the same time, if you're bleeding in the other direction, trying to get the air out of there, it'll mean you won't draw it down the sides of the thread. And also, when you finally nip it up and the job's finished, well, that's not going to corrode in place if it's got a little bit of that tape around it, is it? It's going to stay there nice and safe, nice and sealed. When you want to get it free, it'll just come undone nicely. A simple fix that costs next to nothing. Problem solved. Ain't hard, is it? Right, there we are. A simple enough task. And as you can see, that syringe contraption is the best money I've ever spent in recent years. It really is. It just takes one time, one effort, one squirt, you filled the system. So imagine all those hours that you might have spent trying to plumb up dry hoses. Dry hoses, it's a big quantity of air, and the normal bleeding procedure that we know and love doesn't work, simply because there's too much air there and it squeezes in and out like a big spring, and it just doesn't then produce any suction to drag more fluid down, so you don't end up bleeding. It just takes forever. This way, first time, every time, one squeeze, fills it up to there, and that's it. It's bang on, first time. No mess, no fuss, done. Now, I'll put a link to that in the description underneath, along with the link to the hoses. If you're looking for brake hoses for your bike, Wimoto will make them to order, everything I said earlier on. Now, you will do this kind of job. If you're going to fit ape hangers, you'll need longer brake hoses. If you're going to fit touring bars and a top yoke conversion to your touring motorcycle, or you've got something, I don't know, like a ZZR 1400, and it's a bit too far forward for you, you can buy top yoke conversions like this and you trim your screen back. Well, again, you're going to need longer hoses and longer cables. Well, all of that hopefully will help you if you're doing that on your bike. Now, in the next one, cables. I tried and tried and tried to find some longer cables, but they just don't exist pre-made. So what I've got is I've got a universal kit, and I'm going to make my own longer control cables for throttle and choke. So that'll be the next one. Take it easy, ride safe, and I'll see you next time.